The chambers of the Galactic Council had never been so silent. 12,000 species represented, each with their banners shimmering in the artificial light, yet not a single sound dared to break the air. The holographic display at the center of the hall burned with one image, a blue and white planet half in shadow, Earth. Around it, hundreds of wrecked alien warships drifted in orbit, smoking and broken. The once proud fleets of the Dominion Armada, the most powerful force in the galaxy, now looked like scattered ashes in the void. For the council members, the image was unthinkable. Humanity wasn't supposed to be capable of this. They were considered a young race, a species that had barely joined the galactic stage. Yet somehow they had struck back, and not with desperation, but precision. The retaliation had been swift, coordinated, and devastating. No one could understand how they had done it. No one could even agree on what weapon had caused such destruction. But the results were undeniable. The Dominion Armada was gone, and with it, the illusion of galactic control. The chamber erupted in overlapping voices, alien tongues blending into chaos. The representatives shouted, accusing, demanding, terrified. Some wanted immediate action, sanctions, containment, even a full-scale eradication of humanity before they grew any more dangerous. Others warned against it, whispering of Earth's unpredictable nature, of their strange resilience and relentless spirit. But through the noise, one thing was clear. Fear had taken root in every corner of the room. At the center podium, the council speaker raised a trembling hand, trying to restore order. His species was ancient, known for its calm and logic, but even his voice wavered. "Order," he demanded, though the sound was nearly drowned out by the arguing. "Order! We will have order in this chamber!" Slowly the room quieted. The speaker's luminous eyes focused on the image of Earth. "Humanity's retaliation has shaken the balance of the stars," he said. "Their actions have rewritten what we thought we knew about them." He paused, and the weight of his words hung in the still air. Humanity had always been seen as unpredictable, yes, but this went beyond unpredictability. It was a declaration, a message sent across the stars. They would not kneel, and the galaxy had heard it loud and clear. Behind the speaker, the recording from the Dominion front flickered to life. The footage showed the final minutes before their defeat. A swarm of alien warships surrounded Earth's orbit, forming a blockade meant to suffocate the planet. Then, without warning, the Earth's defense grid came alive. It wasn't the slow, panicked response they'd seen in earlier conflicts. This was precise, calculated. Every orbital cannon, every hidden satellite, every stealth vessel, firing in perfect unison. It wasn't a defense, it was vengeance. The final moments of the footage were seared into everyone's memory. The Dominion's command ship, the Varloth Prime, tearing apart in a blaze of light. Then static. The transmission had ended there. No survivors, no signals. Just silence from an empire that had once claimed half the known galaxy. "Impossible," muttered one of the counselors, his skin rippling with agitation. A species that primitive could not have executed such coordination. Their technology has advanced, another interrupted coldly, perhaps far beyond what we permitted. You forget how quickly humans adapt when cornered. The word hung in the air, adapt. It was something the older races had always underestimated about humanity. They didn't just survive, they evolved under pressure, changed faster than any simulation could predict. Every war, every invasion, every betrayal had forged them harder. And now, after centuries of being underestimated, they had turned that adaptability into something terrifying. Whispers spread among the council. Reports of strange new human vessels emerging from the dark edges of space, unregistered and cloaked. Rumors of entire colonies gone silent. Alien worlds where human ships had appeared and vanished, leaving only wreckage behind. No one could confirm it, but the fear grew with every mention. "We must respond," said a reptilian delegate, slamming his clawed hand on the table. If we show weakness now, humanity will see it as an invitation to expand. And what would you propose? Another snapped. Another armada? We just lost 3. They will come for us next, a third voice whispered. You know they will. They don't forgive. The speaker's eyes dimmed. He knew they were right about one thing. Humanity never forgot. Every treaty that had been broken, every city that had burned, every colony left to die when the council turned away. They remembered it all. Their retaliation was not random. It was justice in their eyes. Cold, deliberate justice. Far above the council chambers, in orbit around the neutral station, a small fleet of human ships waited in silence. They didn't broadcast any signal. No insignia marked their hulls, only a simple emblem, a broken chain painted across each vessel. Within the lead ship, the crew watched the live transmission from the council with quiet satisfaction. They didn't speak. They didn't celebrate. They simply watched. The commander stood by the viewport, Earth's image reflected in her eyes. They thought we'd bow, she said softly. They thought fear would keep us in place. Her voice was calm, almost detached. Now they understand what happens when humanity stops asking for mercy. Behind her, an officer turned from his console. Ma'am, the council is debating sanctions. Some are calling for an embargo against all human colonies. The commander smiled faintly. Let them talk. Words are all they have left. She stepped closer to the glass, her gaze fixed on the stars beyond. They forget what they taught us, what centuries of survival burned into us. We don't break under pressure. We sharpen. Back in the chambers, the debate had reached its breaking point. One counselor rose, shouting above the rest. We cannot allow a single species to dictate the fate of the galaxy. The speaker leaned forward. And what if that species already has? The words silenced them. For the first time, they all felt it. The shift of power. Humanity was no longer the prey. They were the storm. An aide rushed into the room, breathless, clutching a data pad. Transmission from the outer colonies, she shouted. There's been another strike. The room froze. Where? The speaker asked. The aide hesitated. The Rhinar system, a Dominion remnant fleet. Gone. No survivors. The speaker's voice dropped to a whisper. By whose hand? The aide swallowed hard. The signature matches the human retaliation fleet. Gasps filled the chamber. Even the veterans who had seen centuries of war felt a chill. The humans were still moving, still striking. The retaliation wasn't over. It was only beginning. As the counselors erupted again into shouting and fear, the speaker stared at the fading image of Earth. He had seen civilizations rise and fall, but never had he seen such unity in vengeance. Humanity, the youngest of them all, had done the unthinkable. They had made the galaxy afraid. He wondered if that was their plan all along. Not to win wars, not to conquer, but to make every empire remember what happens when you push humanity too far. Outside the chamber walls, the stars burned brighter, silent witnesses to the chaos below. And somewhere, in the darkness between them, human ships waited, watching, planning their next move. The galaxy had called them weak once. That word would never be spoken again, because humanity had awakened. And this time they weren't fighting for survival. They were fighting to remind the universe who they truly were. And just as the council prepared to send a desperate message of peace, the lights across the chamber flickered. Every screen went dark, except one. A single human transmission blinked into life, carrying only 4 words across the stars. Round 2 begins now. The council chamber sat in stunned silence, the echo of those 4 words pulsing through every mind present. Round 2 begins now. No one dared to move. No one dared to breathe. The lights flickered once more, then stabilized. For the first time in galactic history, the Council of Worlds, an assembly that had commanded entire star systems with a single decree, felt powerless. The speaker's hands trembled as he gestured for the technicians to cut the transmission, but it was already gone. The holographic display faded to black, leaving only the reflection of fearful faces across the room. He could see it in their eyes. The realization that the humans had not just struck back. They had declared a new kind of war, a war of messages, of symbols, of control. On the far side of the chamber, a cluster of delegates whispered among themselves. They came from species known for their intelligence networks, yet even they had no answers. "How did they breach our communications grid?" one demanded. "That system is sealed within the Council core." Another shook his head. Not sealed enough. Somehow they found a way in. The speaker turned to his advisors. "Trace the origin of that transmission," he ordered. "I want to know how deep they've reached." But deep down, he already suspected the truth. The humans had always excelled at turning weaknesses into weapons. Their entire history was built on adapting to threats far greater than themselves. It wasn't their ships or their weapons that frightened him. It was their minds. Across the stars, in a hidden human outpost on the edge of the Orion cluster, the same message was being replayed on a screen before a small group of commanders. The air was tense, filled with the low hum of machinery and the faint vibration of distant engines. They had watched the Council's reaction in real time, and now the room was quiet. The commander, who had stood by the viewport earlier, spoke at last. "They've taken the bait," she said. Her voice was steady, but her eyes were sharp. "They'll start tearing apart their own systems looking for us. They'll suspect each other before they ever find the truth." Another officer frowned. "And if they trace it back?" "They won't," she replied. "We used their own relay satellites. The signal originated from one of their council stations. They'll never believe it came from us." She turned back to the display, where the image of Earth slowly rotated in silence. "This is what they wanted to forget," she said softly. "That we learn faster than anyone. Every weapon they used against us, every law they wrote to contain us, we studied all of it." The younger officer beside her looked uncertain. "Commander, do you really think they'll retaliate again? After what happened to the Dominion?" The commander gave a faint smile. "Fear makes fools of the powerful. They'll retaliate. Not because they're brave, but because they can't accept the truth, that they've already lost control." The room fell quiet again, and in that silence, the unspoken reality settled like dust. Humanity hadn't just survived the Dominion's war, they had evolved through it. The endless bombardments, the betrayals by supposed allies, the years of rebuilding in the shadows. It had all shaped them into something the galaxy couldn't predict. They were no longer the uncertain newcomers to the stars. They were a force that refused to be underestimated again. Meanwhile, in the heart of the Council's secure communication center, technicians worked frantically to locate the breach. Streams of alien code filled the holographic screens, data flowing faster than even the most advanced systems could process. "It's like chasing a shadow," one engineer muttered. "Every time we find a trace, it splits and vanishes." The chief technician frowned. "It's not random. Someone built this pattern on purpose." He zoomed in on one of the repeating data fragments. Embedded deep in the encryption was a single human phrase, 3 words written in simple English. "We remember everything." The technician stared at it, his throat dry. "They're not just sending messages," he whispered. "They're reminding us." When the speaker was informed, he said nothing for a long time. The chamber around him buzzed with panic, reports of failed communications, trade routes going dark, and colonies refusing to send data back. The galaxy was unraveling, not because of human weapons, but because of human fear. Every empire that had once ruled through intimidation now questioned if it might be next. In a distant part of the Milky Way, a cargo ship drifted silently through the void. Its crew was human. Miners, traders, ordinary people trying to survive between the cracks of empires. They had no idea of the chaos their species had ignited. But when a military vessel passed them and refused to answer their calls, they noticed. When trade networks began to shut down and human colonies stopped receiving supplies, they understood something had changed. One of the crew leaned against the viewport, staring at the stars. "Feels different, doesn't it?" he murmured. "Like the galaxy's holding its breath." His captain nodded slowly. "It started," she said. The retaliation wasn't the end. It was just the warning. Back on the Council's central world, paranoia spread like wildfire. Rumors of human infiltrators began to circulate. Some claimed Earth had developed cloaking technology undetectable by any known sensors. Others said humans had learned how to control artificial intelligence in ways no other species could match. And though no proof existed, fear didn't need proof. It just needed whispers. The speaker convened a closed meeting with a handful of trusted advisors. If the humans continue this, they could destabilize the entire galactic network, one said urgently. Our trade, our defense, our alliances all depend on order. Then restore order, the speaker said grimly. Whatever it takes. But even as he spoke, he knew it wouldn't be that simple. Humanity had become a ghost in the system, everywhere and nowhere at once. Their fleets were smaller but faster, their communication encrypted beyond comprehension. Every move they made carried purpose. Far from the Council's reach, deep within a hollowed-out asteroid base, humanity's leaders met in secret. Their council wasn't made of politicians or generals. It was made of survivors. People who had lived through the Dominion invasion, who had seen entire cities turn to dust. They didn't speak of revenge anymore. What they wanted was something far greater: deterrence. A message written in the language the galaxy understood: power. A strategist leaned forward, her eyes cold. "They used to laugh at us," she said. "They called us reckless, emotional, unpredictable. Now they call us dangerous. Let them." Another replied, "We can't keep escalating forever. Eventually, they'll unite against us. Then they'll finally learn what unity looks like," she said. "Because we already have it." The commander from the Retaliation fleet entered the room. Every eye turned toward her. "The Council has begun mobilizing again," she reported. "They're preparing another blockade, this time around Mars and Luna sectors." "Let them come," said the strategist. "We've already anticipated this." The commander nodded slowly. "Then it's time for the next phase." "What's that?" someone asked. Her answer was simple: information. Silence followed. Every human in the room knew what that meant. Weapons could destroy fleets, but information could destroy empires. Humanity didn't need to fight every battle. They only needed to show the galaxy its own reflection, to reveal the corruption, the manipulation, the crimes buried under centuries of power. And when the truth came to light, the galaxy would turn on itself. In the council chambers, tension reached its breaking point. Delegates accused each other of secret pacts with humans, of hidden deals, of betrayal. Trust evaporated, replaced by suspicion. Every encrypted message was seen as a threat, every silence as a sign of guilt. The same chamber that had once symbolized order was now drowning in fear. The speaker looked around the hall, his voice barely audible. "This is how they win," he said. "Not with fleets, not with weapons, but with doubt." And somewhere, in the cold vacuum between stars, the human fleet drifted in formation, silent, waiting. Their mission wasn't over. It was only beginning. The commander stood before her crew once more, her reflection merging with the void beyond. "They thought retaliation was our end," she said quietly. "But retaliation was just the answer to their first mistake." She paused, her gaze hardening. "Now they'll learn what comes after fear." Outside, the stars pulsed faintly, as if reacting to the tension building across the galaxy. The silence before the storm had returned, but this time, everyone knew who the storm belonged to. Humanity wasn't hiding anymore. They were preparing to strike again. The galaxy felt smaller now. Every world, every outpost, every trade lane buzzed with the same uneasy energy, the quiet dread that humanity had become the shadow in every system. The once proud fleets of the Council patrolled nervously, their sensors always searching for signs of invisible ships. But the humans weren't attacking. Not yet. They waited, letting fear do the work for them. That was the brilliance of their strategy. Silence had become their most powerful weapon. Inside one of the Council's outer colonies, a desert world known for its crystal mines, the local governor paced across the command center. Reports came in of ships disappearing near the asteroid belts, communications breaking down, drones going dark. Every incident was blamed on humanity, even when there was no evidence. The fear alone was enough to cause chaos. Workers refused to leave their domes. Trade convoys rerouted themselves away from human space, and border patrols fired on shadows. In a dimly lit chamber beneath the governor's base, a group of officials met in secret. "The Council is collapsing," one whispered. "We can't rely on them anymore. The speaker's losing control." Another leaned closer, his voice low. "You've heard the rumors. Some worlds are negotiating directly with the humans now. They're promising safety in exchange for neutrality." The governor slammed his fist on the table. "Neutrality? There's no such thing as neutrality when it comes to humans. You either fear them or you fight them." But even as he said it, doubt flickered in his eyes. Deep down, he knew the truth. Humanity had changed the rules of power, and everyone, council and colony alike, was now trapped in their new game. Far away, on a cold research moon orbiting a dying star, a group of scientists studied the aftermath of the Dominion War. The wreckage of the alien armada still floated in orbit, fragments of massive ships drifting like ghosts. The lead researcher, an older woman with years of experience in xenotechnology, stared at the data before her. The readings didn't make sense. The human retaliation strike had used energy patterns no one had ever seen before, controlled yet unpredictable. It didn't match any known weapon system. "Maybe it wasn't a weapon," one of her assistants suggested. "Maybe it was something else." The researcher turned toward him. "Then what was it?" He hesitated. "A signal." She frowned, then looked back at the recordings. He might be right. The energy bursts hadn't just destroyed ships, they'd disrupted communications, power grids, even AI cores. It was as if the weapon had carried more than just force. It carried intent. She stared at the screen for a long moment, then whispered to herself, "What have they built?" At that same moment, deep within Earth's military command complex, hidden beneath layers of reinforced shielding, humanity's own scientists were watching as well. The retaliation weapon, codenamed Erebus, was still under analysis. It had been designed in secrecy, its true nature known only to a handful of people. Even among Earth's leaders, rumors spread that the weapon wasn't entirely human in origin. Some claimed it had been built using fragments of alien technology left behind during the first invasions. Others believed it was something older, something humanity had discovered and then re-engineered. In a small meeting room, Earth's Defense Council gathered. The atmosphere was tense, but focused. "The Council is panicking," said one officer. "Their worlds are turning against each other. We don't need another direct strike. Let them fall apart on their own." Another younger officer shook his head. "They won't go quietly. Once they unite again, they'll come for us in force. We should be preparing the next phase of Erebus." The commander, seated at the head of the table, looked thoughtful. "Erebus isn't meant to destroy," she said. "It's meant to remind them. Every time they think we're finished, it proves we aren't." "But if they corner us again?" the young officer pressed. "Then we show them what real desperation looks like," she replied. Outside, the vast hangars of Earth's defense fleet glowed with activity. Ships were being refitted, new ones constructed. The war had taken its toll, but humanity was rebuilding faster than anyone expected. From Mars to Titan to the edge of the Kuiper Belt, humans were uniting under a single banner, not of conquest, but of defiance. Meanwhile, in the Council's inner circle, divisions deepened. Some members argued for diplomacy, insisting that humanity could be reasoned with. Others demanded total eradication, claiming peace with such a species was impossible. The speaker tried to hold them together, but each day brought more chaos. Then came the unexpected. A transmission arrived, not from Earth, but from one of the neutral sectors. It was encoded, anonymous. When decrypted, it contained a simple message: "We can end this war. Meet us." The Council hesitated, unsure whether it was a trap. But desperation outweighed caution. They sent a small delegation to the coordinates. The meeting place was an abandoned orbital station, long forgotten and drifting in silence. The Council envoys arrived first, wary and armed. Minutes later, a small human ship emerged from the void. No weapons, no escort, just one vessel. From it stepped a single human representative. She wore no insignia, no armor, just a simple suit. Her expression was calm, her tone even. "You came," she said. The lead envoy stared at her cautiously. "You sent the message?" She nodded. "You want to understand why we retaliated? I'm here to tell you." The envoys exchanged glances. "We already know why. You wanted revenge." "Revenge?" she echoed softly. "If we wanted revenge, you wouldn't be here." She stepped closer. "You call it retaliation. We call it a lesson. For years, you watched us burn. You watched while the Dominion slaughtered our people. And when we begged for aid, you turned away. The Council said humanity needed to learn its place. Well, we learned, and we made sure the galaxy would never forget it." The lead envoy's jaw tightened. "You think fear will earn you respect?" "No," she replied calmly, "but it will buy us peace. And that's all we ever wanted." The envoys fell silent. For a moment, it almost seemed like an understanding might form. But then the human's communicator beeped softly. She glanced at it, her eyes narrowing. The lead envoy noticed the change in her expression. "What's happening?" She looked up. "You shouldn't have brought more ships." The envoy's eyes widened. "We didn't..." But it was too late. The outer sensors of the station lit up. Multiple Council warships were emerging from hyperspace. It wasn't a diplomatic escort, it was an ambush. The human agent stepped back slowly, her voice calm but cold. "So that's your answer." The envoys shouted for her to stop, but she was already gone. Within seconds, her ship vanished into the black, leaving the Council fleet in confusion. Then the alarms began to scream. Every system on the station started to overload. Power surged through the corridors, lights flickering wildly. From the command deck of her fleeing ship, the human watched as the station's systems collapsed. She hadn't activated anything, but someone else had. Back on Earth, deep within the military command network, an AI signal confirmed the sequence. The Retaliation fleet had been watching. The ambush had triggered an automatic defense protocol. The old orbital station, long forgotten, had been part of humanity's hidden grid. Within moments, the station went dark. The Council's warships scattered in panic, their systems scrambled by the same pulse that had once destroyed the Dominion fleet. No ships were lost, but the message was unmistakable. Humanity was always one step ahead. In the Council chambers hours later, fury replaced fear. "They're manipulating us," one delegate shouted. "They knew we'd react." Another slammed his hand on the table. "Then maybe it's time to stop reacting and start fighting back." But even as they argued, the speaker sat quietly, staring at the data feed. Humanity hadn't attacked the ships. They'd let them live. That meant they were still in control, and still choosing restraint. That was the most terrifying part of all. Somewhere beyond the Council's reach, aboard the human flagship Resolute, the commander watched the incident unfold. The crew waited for her orders. "Do we respond?" one asked. She shook her head slowly. "No, let them stew. They'll destroy themselves faster than we ever could." She turned toward the viewport, her reflection merging with the starlight. "The galaxy still thinks it understands war," she murmured, "but they've never fought one like us." Outside, the stars shimmered faintly against the void, each one a silent witness to the storm gathering once more. The retaliation had sparked fear. Now fear was becoming chaos. And as the galaxy tore itself apart trying to contain the humans, humanity was already preparing for the next move. Because for them, this wasn't just survival anymore. It was evolution. The tension across the galaxy had reached its breaking point. Every transmission between star systems was filled with suspicion. Every border scan was a trigger waiting to go off. The Council's fleets now moved in nervous formations, jumping from one sector to another, trying to anticipate humanity's next strike. But no one could. The humans had vanished into silence again, just as before. Yet everyone knew that silence wasn't peace. It was warning. The kind that made even the bravest captains look over their shoulders. In the council chambers, the speaker stood at the center of chaos. Delegates shouted, demanding retaliation, defense pacts, and preemptive strikes. The galaxy's strongest alliance had become a nest of panic. One representative slammed his hand down. "We can't wait any longer. They're planning something. We all know it." The speaker's calm voice broke through the noise. "And if we strike first, what then? Do you think they'll surrender? Or will they finish what they started?" Silence followed, but only for a moment. "If we do nothing," another delegate argued, "they'll take our hesitation as weakness. They'll move against our colonies next." "They don't need to move," the speaker said quietly. "They already control the fear we live in. That's their weapon now." But even he knew the truth. Humanity's next move was coming. He could feel it in the air like static before a storm. Far from the Council world, on the edge of the Vega cluster, a small human fleet drifted in formation around a dead moon. The ships had no identification marks, no visible weapons. Their hulls were dark, absorbing every glimmer of starlight. In the command ship's observation deck, the commander watched the holographic map flicker with countless enemy fleets scattered across space. She studied every formation, every weak point, every blind spot. Her second-in-command approached quietly. "We've intercepted their new communication frequencies. They're moving forces toward the neutral zones. They expect us to attack there." The commander's eyes narrowed. "Then that's where we won't go." She turned back to the map, pointing toward a cluster of worlds in the opposite direction. "This is where we strike next. The Council's heart isn't their fleets, it's their coordination. Cut that, and the whole system collapses." The officer hesitated. "If we hit their command relays, we'll be crossing a line. The Council will call it an act of total war." The commander looked at him, her expression steady. "They already have. We're just finishing what they started years ago." Across the galaxy, in the Council's intelligence division, a team of analysts worked tirelessly to predict humanity's next move. But every simulation ended in failure. The humans didn't act like any known military force. They didn't hold territory. They didn't defend traditional borders. They moved like a thought, appearing where least expected, vanishing before a response could form. The lead strategist rubbed his temples in frustration. "It's not strategy," he muttered. "It's instinct. They think like predators, not soldiers." His assistant frowned. "Then how do we fight that?" He looked up, tired eyes reflecting the glowing maps. "You don't. You survive it." Meanwhile, on a neutral world that had somehow avoided the worst of the conflict, whispers spread among traders and refugees. Some claimed they'd seen human envoys offering safe passage in exchange for information. Others said the humans were gathering allies, species who had suffered under the Council's rule, now rallying quietly under Earth's shadow. In one of the crowded taverns, A traveler leaned forward, his voice low. "You think the Council can stop them now? You haven't seen what they've built? They've got fleets hidden in the dark zones, whole worlds that don't exist on any map." Another shook her head. "No one can hide fleets that long. The Council would have found them." The traveler smirked. "That's the problem. They keep looking in the light. Humans learned long ago that the darkest places are where no one bothers to search." As the galaxy speculated, the Council grew desperate. They began deploying advanced surveillance networks, linking star systems into one massive grid. It was the largest intelligence operation ever attempted. And yet, days into the deployment, strange interference began disrupting the data. Entire sectors went dark for hours at a time. No one could explain it. Then the first message came through, a simple transmission intercepted on a secure frequency. No visuals, no coordinates, only a voice. Human, calm, unmistakable. "You keep searching for us, but you never ask why we fight." The message ended abruptly, but its impact was immediate. Panic swept through the upper command centers. The fact that the humans had breached the grid meant only one thing. They were already inside the Council's most secure network. The speaker demanded a full shutdown of all interstellar channels, but by then it was too late. The voice returned. "You think this is war?" it said. "It isn't. It's a reckoning." That word echoed across the galaxy like thunder. Every ship captain, every governor, every counselor felt it. Reckoning. Humanity wasn't fighting for conquest. They were fighting to make the galaxy remember. Within hours, ships across multiple sectors began reporting ghost signals, phantom pings of human fleets that appeared and disappeared instantly. Some captains fired on empty space, convinced they were under attack. Others fled without orders. Confusion spread faster than any weapon could travel. On Earth, the commander received the reports with quiet satisfaction. "They're unraveling," she said softly. "Their fear is doing more damage than our ships ever could." Her communications officer hesitated. The speakers issued a plea for peace talks. "They're asking for direct negotiation." The commander didn't answer right away. She watched the holographic map as red indicators, representing Council fleets, began to scatter and fade. Finally, she said, "Not yet. Let them feel the weight of their own chaos. Only then will they understand what peace costs." Back in the Council chamber, the speaker faced growing dissent. Delegates accused him of weakness, of letting the humans dictate the war. He slammed his staff against the floor, silencing them. "Enough." His voice echoed through the hall. "You speak of war as if we haven't already lost half our unity. Look around you. The humans haven't fired a single shot this week, and yet our worlds riot, our fleets crumble, and our citizens doubt us. That is their victory." His words struck something deeper than fear. It was realization. Humanity wasn't destroying worlds. They were dismantling the foundation of control that had ruled the galaxy for centuries. Yet even as the speaker tried to hold his council together, his aides rushed in with grim faces. "Sir," one said breathlessly, "we've lost communication with the outer defense grid." He frowned. "Another interference?" The aide shook her head. "No, sir, it's gone, completely. Every satellite, every relay, offline." The chamber fell silent, and then the lights dimmed. For a moment, the Great Council chamber, the symbol of galactic power, stood in total darkness. The delegates murmured in confusion, until a faint blue glow appeared at the center of the room. It was a hologram. Earth, slowly rotating, perfectly detailed. The speaker's voice was barely a whisper. "No." Then a voice filled the chamber. Calm, human. "You silenced our cries when we asked for mercy. You ignored our dead when we begged for help. You called us unstable, primitive. But look at us now. You built an empire on fear, and now it's your turn to live in it." The hologram flickered once, then vanished, leaving only the silence of breathing and racing hearts. Across the galaxy, Every communications network received the same message. From the largest city to the smallest mining station, the same voice repeated the same words. Humanity had found a way to speak to every world at once. Ships scrambled, systems rebooted, but the message couldn't be stopped. It played on every channel, every frequency, echoing through the void like a prophecy. On Earth, the commander watched it unfold. Her crew waited for orders, eyes fixed on her. "They wanted to call us monsters," she said quietly. "Let them. Because sometimes monsters are the only ones who make tyrants listen." One of her officers turned, uneasy. "Commander, are we really ready for what comes next?" She met his gaze, her expression unreadable. "No one ever is." And with that, she gave the signal. Across the dark edges of the galaxy, hidden fleets began to awaken. Engines flared to life, weapons powered up, and silent ships turned toward their targets. The storm was no longer coming. It had arrived. In the council chamber, alarms screamed as new readings flooded the systems. Dozens of unknown signatures had appeared. Human fleets, moving fast, surrounding key sectors. The speaker stood frozen, the weight of inevitability pressing down on him. He could see the pattern now. Humanity hadn't come to conquer. They had come to end something that had been broken for centuries. And as the chamber filled with light from 1,000 incoming alerts, the speaker whispered the truth no one else dared to say. "They're not fighting for survival anymore," he said. "They're fighting to remind us what survival really means." Outside, the stars shimmered, cold, distant, and silent witnesses to the final breath before war. The galaxy stood at the edge of something irreversible. And in that vast stillness, one truth pulsed louder than fear itself. Humanity's retaliation was never over. It was only waiting for the final strike. The council chamber was chaos. Representatives from across the stars shouted over one another, their voices a blend of panic and disbelief. The holographic display in the center flickered with the same image over and over, a human fleet emerging from the void, its formation sharp, deliberate, and unmistakably defiant. Humanity had struck back. The retaliation no one thought possible had become reality. But what truly sent shockwaves through the chamber wasn't the attack. It was how humanity had done it. They had used technology the council hadn't even known existed. The chair of the council demanded order, slamming his staff on the floor, but the noise only grew louder. Reports flooded in, defense grids offline, trade routes collapsing, and communication networks jammed. Every world connected to the council felt the ripple of humanity's return. The same species that had once been dismissed as primitive had now demonstrated something terrifying, ingenuity powered by desperation. In the midst of the uproar, one of the aides whispered something to a senior delegate, who froze mid-breath. The information spread fast, reaching the highest tiers in minutes. Humanity wasn't alone. Someone, or something, had helped them. That was the twist no one had expected. The humans had allies hidden in the dark, unknown factions that had stayed silent for centuries, watching, waiting. The Council's security divisions scrambled to trace any signal or clue that could explain who these mysterious forces were. Theories spun out of control: rogue colonies, lost civilizations, or perhaps exiled members of the Council itself. Every possibility seemed worse than the last. But what terrified them most was the precision of the attack. It wasn't random. Humanity hadn't struck blindly. They had targeted specific systems, key to the Council's control. In the shadows of the chamber, an old envoy watched quietly, his eyes fixed on the flickering display. He had warned them long ago that Earth's silence wasn't surrender. It was strategy. He had seen that look before, the calm before humanity unleashed everything it had left. Now he realized the truth too late. The humans had learned not only to survive, but to adapt to every cruelty the galaxy had thrown at them, and now they were rewriting the balance of power. Meanwhile, in a hidden base orbiting a dying red star, the leaders of the human coalition studied their next move. The retaliation had succeeded beyond expectations, but they knew the council wouldn't stay disoriented for long. Plans were already being made to strengthen their defense lines, protect civilian colonies, and send envoys to their newfound allies. Yet, amidst the tense atmosphere, one commander voiced a question that silenced the room. How had the council not detected their preparations? Who had been shielding them? That question revealed the second twist. There was someone, or something, operating from within the council itself, helping humanity from the shadows. A double agent, maybe even a group, someone who believed the council's arrogance had gone too far, someone who remembered what humanity once was and couldn't bear to see them destroyed completely. The humans didn't know their name, but they knew their code name, Echo. Whoever they were, they had fed Earth critical intelligence that made the retaliation possible. And now, that same person was in danger. Back in the council chamber, a cryptic message appeared across the central display, interrupting every transmission. The text burned in pale blue light. Balance must return. You silenced them once. Now you will listen. Then it vanished. The chamber fell silent, every delegate staring at the fading light in disbelief. Security systems began scanning for the source, but none was found. The council realized that whoever sent the message was still inside their network, still watching them. Panic turned into suspicion. Accusations erupted. Representatives began turning on each other, fearing infiltration. The unity that once held the council together was fracturing under the weight of fear. For the first time in centuries, they realized they were vulnerable. Humanity hadn't just struck their defenses, they had struck their confidence. In the shadows of the chamber, the old envoy quietly left, unnoticed. He knew the storm wasn't over. If Echo existed, and if humanity truly had the support of forces beyond their known reach, then the entire galactic order was about to collapse. The Council's control had been built on predictability, but humanity had always thrived in chaos. As he reached the exit, he paused and looked back one last time. The holographic map of the galaxy flickered behind him, dotted with red marks of conflict. He whispered to himself, "You underestimated them again." His voice was barely audible, but it carried a weight of inevitability. Far across the void, deep within Earth's command ship, alarms sounded. New data streamed in. Council fleets were mobilizing faster than anticipated. Humanity had forced their hand. The retaliation had woken something ancient within the galactic order, and now the Council was preparing for full-scale war. But before the humans could respond, one of the encrypted channels lit up with a single phrase. "They found me." It was Echo. Their location was compromised. The message cut off abruptly. No coordinates, no signal, just static. Humanity's leaders exchanged grim looks. Whoever had helped them from within the Council was about to be silenced forever. Yet even as fear crept through the room, a quiet determination replaced it. They wouldn't let the sacrifice be in vain. Outside the ship, the stars glimmered cold and distant. Fleets moved silently through the darkness, unseen by most sensors. The retaliation had shaken the galaxy, but what was coming next would break it apart. The humans weren't fighting for revenge anymore. They were fighting for survival, and for a truth the Council had buried for generations. Somewhere deep within the galactic archives, a sealed file stirred awake for the first time in centuries. Hidden data streams began to decrypt, revealing ancient records the Council had erased. A secret about the first war between humanity and the stars, a truth that would change everything once it came to light. And as the last lights in the chamber flickered, one message pulsed across a forgotten terminal in the Council's core. History repeats, but this time, they remember. The chamber went dark. The galaxy trembled as the Council's fleets converged toward the Sol system. From every corner of known space, armadas gathered, their combined force unmatched in history. Humanity's retaliation had lit the first spark, but now the fire had spread beyond control. The Council wanted dominance restored, but they had underestimated how far humanity was willing to go to protect what little remained of their home. Every ship in Earth's orbit bristled with defenses, their hulls scarred yet defiant. Inside command centers, soldiers and scientists worked side by side, preparing for what everyone knew could be their final stand. In the war room aboard the flagship Resolute Dawn, tension hung heavy in the air. The fleet's commanders stood around a glowing holographic map of the system, showing thousands of red blips moving toward them. "They're coming faster than projections," one officer said quietly. Another replied, "Then we hold the line faster than they expect." No one laughed, but a small spark of pride lingered in their eyes. Humanity had been crushed, exiled, and dismissed. But now, for the first time, they had the Council's full attention. Suddenly, a sharp tone echoed through the chamber, an incoming encrypted transmission. The signal pattern was familiar. It was echo. The message was broken and filled with static, but a few words made it through. "They know the truth. In the archives. The weapon, not ours." Confusion rippled through the room. What weapon? What truth? Before anyone could respond, the transmission cut off. It was clear that Echo was gone. The silence that followed was thick, the realization settling in that the Council's attack might not just be about revenge, it was about secrecy. Outside, fleets emerged from hyperspace, surrounding the human defense perimeter. The Council demanded unconditional surrender, broadcasting a message across every channel. "Lay down your arms, and your people will live." The humans didn't respond. Instead, their ships began repositioning, forming an unbroken wall around Earth. The Council ships advanced, then without warning the stars erupted in light. The battle began. Plasma beams cut through the void, missiles streaked between ships, and entire formations vanished in blinding flashes. The silence of space was broken by the chaos of survival. Humanity fought with precision and desperation, every move calculated, every loss costly. The Council's superior numbers began to press them back, but something unexpected happened. The Council's own ships began turning on each other. Confusion spread across their ranks as systems glitched, navigation failed, and weapons refused to fire. Inside the Council's command carrier, panic broke out. "Our systems are compromised. Who authorized these overrides?" an officer shouted. No one had an answer. Then, on every screen, the same pale blue message appeared. "You built your power on lies." The signature at the bottom was unmistakable. Echo. Somehow, they had triggered one final act. In that moment, the tide shifted. Human ships launched their final counterstrike, focusing fire on the Council's command vessels. The Council's forces tried to reorganize, but chaos had already taken root. Their fleets began falling apart, not from sheer destruction, but from betrayal within. Someone, or something, was controlling their systems. The realization came too late. Humanity had not only fought back, they had turned the Council's own technology against them. But amidst the victory, the truth finally surfaced. Deep within the archives Echo mentioned, a hidden transmission played across every remaining ship. It was an ancient recording, older than the Council itself. The footage showed the first encounter between humanity and the stars, not as a war started by humans, but as a war started against them. The Council had erased the truth, rewriting history to portray humanity as the aggressors. In reality, Earth had been targeted because of what they discovered long ago, a power buried beneath their planet's surface, a remnant of a civilization older than both humanity and the Council combined. That was the real reason the Council wanted Earth destroyed. They feared what humans had unearthed, the core light, a mysterious energy source capable of rewriting physical laws. It had once powered the greatest empire in the galaxy before vanishing from history. The Council had been built on fragments of that technology, and they feared humanity's rediscovery of it would expose their deception. Now, with Echo's final transmission, every world connected to the Galactic network saw the truth. The Council's credibility shattered in seconds. Their fleets faltered, leaders lost authority, and their allies turned against them. The chamber that once ruled over 1,000 systems descended into silence, its members facing the consequences of centuries of lies. Humanity, the species they had labeled dangerous, had just brought the truth to light. On board the Resolute Dawn, the crew watched as the Council's ships began retreating, their formations breaking apart. The war was ending, but the cost had been enormous. Earth's defenses were in ruins, and entire colonies had been lost. Yet, amidst the wreckage, humanity stood victorious, not because of brute force, but because of their will to survive and their refusal to forget. As celebrations broke out across the surviving fleets, one final signal appeared on their sensors. It wasn't from the Council, nor from any known ally. It came from the far edge of the system, beyond Pluto's orbit. The message was faint, but clear. "You've awakened it." The fleet commanders exchanged uneasy glances. They tried tracing the origin, but the signal disappeared as quickly as it came. Moments later, the remnants of the core light beneath Earth began to pulse. The ground trembled, lights flickered across the sky, and strange energy patterns appeared across the planet's surface. Scientists scrambled to analyze it, realizing that the core wasn't just a weapon, it was alive. It had been dormant, waiting for the right conditions to awaken. Humanity's retaliation, the galactic war, and the energy unleashed had triggered it. As the planet's orbit filled with light, a calm voice echoed across every communication channel. Not human, not synthetic. Something in between. Balance restored. Judgment incomplete. Then the signal vanished, leaving only silence behind. In that silence, humanity realized that their battle had only opened a larger mystery. The Council's lies were exposed, their fleets defeated, but something far greater had been watching all along. The core light was awake now, its purpose unknown. The surviving human leaders stood in the observation deck, watching the horizon glow faintly blue. "We wanted freedom," one of them whispered. "Now we might have to earn it again." Another replied quietly, "At least this time, the galaxy knows who we are." Outside, the remnants of the Council scattered across the stars, some fleeing, others surrendering. New alliances began to form, and whispers spread of rebuilding what was lost. But in the dark corners of the galaxy, deep beyond the reach of light, ancient eyes turned toward Earth once more. Humanity had won their war, but the true test of their place among the stars was only beginning. And as the stars shimmered faintly, the final transmission from Echo replayed one last time, hidden within the static. "The truth will set you free, but it will never let you rest." The signal faded, leaving only the hum of distant stars and the faint heartbeat of a world forever changed. The light from Earth's surface faded slowly, leaving behind an eerie calm that stretched across the void. The war was over. The great fleets that had once filled the skies were gone, drifting silently as wreckage or retreating to distant corners of the galaxy. Humanity had survived the impossible. They had stood against the Galactic Council, faced betrayal, and exposed the lies that had held 1,000 civilizations in fear. For the first time in centuries, Earth was free, but the silence that followed victory carried its own weight. On board the Resolute Dawn, the command deck was quiet. The crew watched the planet below, its once scarred surface beginning to heal. Cities were coming back online, communications slowly restored, and people, ordinary humans, were stepping out from shelters to see a sky free of enemy fire for the first time in their lives. The commander stood at the viewport, exhausted but proud. They had fought not for power or conquest, but for truth. Humanity had reminded the galaxy of something it had long forgotten, the strength of hope, the stubbornness of spirit, and the will to rise again after being broken. Messages poured in from across human colonies. Cheers, tears, promises to rebuild. But among them were signals from worlds that had once served under the Council. Species that had fought against humanity were now reaching out, offering truce and cooperation. The truth that Echo had revealed had done more than destroy the Council's authority. It had sparked questions, doubt, and, in some places, regret. People across the stars began to realize that their history had been rewritten too. For many, this was not just humanity's victory, it was a chance for renewal. Still, questions lingered. The core light, the ancient energy that had awakened beneath Earth, remained a mystery. Scientists from every surviving nation studied it carefully, afraid yet fascinated. It pulsed faintly beneath the planet's crust, as if alive but sleeping again. They didn't understand its purpose, but they could feel its connection to something vast, something that existed beyond the boundaries of known space. The message it had left, balance restored, judgment incomplete, played over and over in their minds. What had it meant? Was it a warning or a promise? The answer came slowly, not through technology, but through reflection. Humanity had spent generations chasing survival, progress, and revenge. They had fought for freedom, but freedom, they realized, wasn't just the absence of control. It was the ability to choose differently, to build something better than what came before. The core light, whatever it was, had seen the patterns of history repeating. Empires rose, fell, and rebuilt themselves on the ruins of others. Maybe that was what judgment incomplete meant, that true balance would only exist when humanity, and all who lived under the stars, learned from the past instead of repeating it. In the ruins of the old Galactic Council chamber, a handful of surviving delegates gathered. The great halls that had once echoed with authority were now empty, filled only with dust and silence. They had lost everything, their fleets, their power, their credibility. Yet in that silence, there was also humility. Some among them spoke of starting again, not as rulers, but as equals. They wanted to reach out to Earth, not with threats, but with open hands. Whether humanity would accept was uncertain, but the fact that the conversation had begun at all was something no one could have imagined before. Meanwhile, deep in the hidden archives of the Council's destroyed database, a faint flicker of code came alive. It was Echo's final legacy, a fragment of consciousness left behind, encrypted so tightly that no one could delete it. The message was simple and human. The truth will live as long as someone dares to seek it. It was a reminder that one person, one voice, could change the course of entire civilizations. Whoever Echo had been, their sacrifice had ensured humanity's survival and restored a kind of honesty to the stars. On Earth, the rebuilding began in earnest. Nations that had once been divided by borders and beliefs now stood united under one cause: renewal. Spaceports reopened, research stations hummed back to life, and the first missions to reconnect with outer colonies launched with a sense of purpose rather than desperation. The scars of war remained, but they became reminders of what humanity had endured and what it had learned. Children who had grown up in bunkers now played under blue skies. The elderly watched from rebuilt terraces as life returned to streets that had once been silent. Humanity had been tested to its limit, and yet it had found meaning in that struggle. They understood now that their strength was not in weapons or ships, but in their unity, their ability to adapt, to question, to dream beyond fear. In the nights that followed, people began to see strange lights in the sky. They weren't weapons or ships, but faint trails, signals of distant civilizations reaching out, curious and cautious. For the first time, humanity wasn't the hunted species of the galaxy. They were a voice others wanted to hear, and slowly a new alliance began to form, not one of dominance, but of understanding. The commander of the Resolute Dawn watched these signals from orbit, feeling a quiet peace. The war had taken much, but it had also given something priceless: perspective. Humanity had learned that power alone didn't shape destiny. Choices did. They sent one final transmission to all Allied colonies, their voice steady and calm. "We are not the same species that once feared the stars. We are what happens when hope refuses to die. Let the galaxy remember us not for our war, but for our will to rebuild." As the message spread across space, the faint pulse of the core light beneath Earth seemed to respond, glowing just a little brighter. Maybe it was coincidence, or maybe it was acknowledgement, a silent nod from something ancient that humanity had finally taken its first real step toward balance. Far beyond the reach of any scanner, in the endless dark between galaxies, an unseen presence stirred. Watching, waiting. The awakening of the core light had not gone unnoticed. Somewhere in that void, echoes of another civilization, older than any known, shifted in response. Whatever was coming next would test everything humanity had become. But for now, peace held. And on the surface of the blue planet, as dawn broke over the horizon, a child looked up at the stars and asked a question that summed up everything humanity had fought for. "What's out there now?" The answer was simple, but powerful. "Everything," came the reply, "and this time, it's ours to discover." The sky was quiet. The future was uncertain. But for the first time in 1,000 years, humanity stood unafraid, ready not just to survive, but to begin again.